going on, Star Wars fans? My name is John Solo, and welcome to another Star Wars Theory. Today we're discussing one of the weirder and more questionable moments in the original trilogy that doesn't involve incest, of course. This moment can be found at the very end of the 5th episode, The Empire Strikes Back. After a pretty intense brush with the Empire that ends with everyone's favorite smuggler Han Solo frozen in carbonite, our heroes Leia, Chewbacca, 3PO, R2, and Lando Calrissian narrowly escape the mining colony of Cloud City on the Millennium Falcon. After saving Luke Skywalker from an almost certain death below Cloud City and taking him to a rebel medical frigate to receive a robot prosthetic for his missing hand, we hear Lando discussing his plans for finding and saving Han from Jabba the Hutt. We also see him wearing Han's clothes. Why? Seriously. Why? Lando has only been on the Millennium Falcon for a few hours at most, and he's already decided that what's Han's is his? I think we can all agree that it's a pretty weird detail to have thrown in there and have nobody address at all. We don't even hear Lando say something like, "Man, I'm so excited to have gotten out of my sweaty Cloud City clothes. They got so sweaty when I was running for my life from the Empire. I hope Han doesn't mind that I'm borrowing one of his shirts." The impression given to audiences, at least at first glance, is definitely a weird one. However, it might not be the correct one, so I'm here to help clear things up. There are actually two theories that we're going to be discussing today. One that has come to be seen as an at least acceptable answer by a large portion of Star Wars fans, and the other, my preferred explanation that relies a lot more on logic and a lot less on coincidence. The one thing that both of these theories have in common is that they both claim Lando is wearing his own clothes. Let's talk about the more commonly known and fan-accepted theory first, because I mentioned it first, and I feel like it's just confusing to switch up the order for no reason. So this first theory, in my opinion, is a little iffy. Like I said, it relies quite a bit on coincidence, but my biggest qualm with it is that it uses a lot of information from the expanded universe. This means that what I'm about to share is no longer canon, but in my opinion, my personal opinion, it falls into a sort of gray area as nothing from the new canon contradicts it either. As you all know, I don't normally present theories based off of old canon information, but this could come back officially somewhere down the line, and with the new Han Solo movie coming out in 2018, I feel like there's a pretty good chance of that. But enough with the disclaimers and whatnot. Let's just get into it. So some of you may not know this, but in the expanded universe, Han actually served in his home planet of Corellia's military. While serving, he earned something called a Corellian Blood Stripe, which is essentially a Medal of Honor. It's an award given to someone for conspicuous bravery. Blood stripes are displayed on the side of a recipient's pants. As you can see here, there are both yellow and red blood stripes. The reason I'm telling you this is because it serves as evidence that the pants Han wears throughout the original trilogy come from the Corellian military uniform, specifically those of a captain in the Corellian military. Now, the shirt and vest that he wears do not come from the Corellian military, but according to the visual dictionary, are typically worn amongst Corellian spacers. So what this all means is that Han's outfit is not a one-of-a-kind combination. His pants are part of a uniform, and his shirt and vest are the plain white tee of his people. It's because of how common his outfit is that some people claim that Lando isn't wearing Han's clothes, but instead just happens to have a similar outfit. I will admit that without thinking about it too much, if you really want to believe this theory, it makes sense. But as you start to critically evaluate it, the holes become pretty apparent. Probably the biggest issue with this idea is that we see Lando boarding the Millennium Falcon as he escapes Cloud City, and he does not have a duffel bag or a suitcase with wheels on it trailing behind him. If Lando did just happen to own a similar outfit, I don't know where he would have stored it during his escape. You've also got to remember that he left in quite a rush, so I don't think he had time to pack his overnight gear, unless that's something that Lobot would have been in charge of. Now, the second theory we're discussing is, in my opinion, the best one possible. This is because it's simple, it's logical, and it doesn't really require any information from the EU. That being said, if any of the previous expanded universe details came back into play, it still would make sense. So with this theory, you've got the best of both worlds. So like the previous theory, this one also claims that Lando is wearing his own clothes. In fact, it actually claims that Han has been wearing Lando's clothes this entire time. It's a canon fact that Han won the Millennium Falcon from Lando in a game of sabacc. He didn't buy it from a Starship Max, he didn't buy it from Lando, he won it. Being that Han's taking ownership was the result of a gamble, we can probably assume that Lando hadn't necessarily cleaned out the Millennium Falcon before giving it to him. It's because of this that we can also assume that immediately after the game was over, Han just took the keys to the Falcon, and because he's Han Solo, also took possession of everything left on board, for example, clothes. I feel like it's pretty reasonable to assume that after exploring the ship, Han said, you know, screw it, these clothes are in a lot better condition than mine, they're also on my ship, so I guess they're mine now. Don't you think that this makes just a little bit more sense than Lando being on the Millennium Falcon for a couple of hours before deciding that he's free to use anything that's Han's? Put yourself in his shoes for a second. You board your old ship, which you haven't been on in years, you actually get to pilot the thing, and on top of it all, some of the clothes that you left on board are still there. Speaking from personal experience, whenever I find something that's been lost for a really long time, the first thing that I do when I get my hands on it is put it to use. Doesn't matter if it's a video game or a t-shirt. I honestly think that that's what Lando is doing in this scene. Being back on the ship was so incredibly nostalgic for him that he just decided to go all out with the experience and wear his old gear while he could. And that, my friends, is today's theory. I want to hear what you guys think, so be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Click that like button if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe for weekly Star Wars content, and most of all, remember, John shot first.